So the Nature's article, this is the article highlights the concerns over funding cuts and Trump administration, all the funding cuts that we've been talking about. So as the title mentioned, 1,600 researchers want to leave, and they want to move to the US, sorry, the Canada or Europe. And you've just been to the US and you are from the UK. Are you hearing similar stories in the grapevine? And people, are researchers planning to move out of the US?
I've heard that there is deep concern about within the US research community about the future of their jobs, so it doesn't surprise me at all. I think what does surprise me is quite how many
Mm-hmm.
plan to leave or would consider leaving the US as a result of these policies.
Right.
But I mean, the problem is, I mean, here in the UK, for example, we're not in a perfect market either. There's academics leaving
Mm-hmm.
research careers here as well. But at least there's a little bit, was quite a bit more academic freedom, I think, here, at least for the moment.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
Right. Second last main story. Wait, let me just read this. Okay, this is the second last story. So it is a news story. I mean, this is something that stumped both of us. Stumped is a cricketing reference for those
Yeah,
who do not understand this. So
yeah.
one of the darkest days, NIH purges agency leadership amid mass layoffs. So I'm going to read out my notes here. So 4 directors at the NIH were removed from their posts, and it occurred on the first day of J. Bhattacharya's role as the NIH director. So the move is part of a broader NIH restructuring. The directors were offered reassignments within the Indian Health Service, and this is what we were not sure. So we are referring to the Native Indian Health Service, as far as we understand. So Tony, any comments so far?
Well, I think we touched on this story in a previous episode
Yeah.
about the NIH of closing down. So they weren't necessarily closing down those departments. What they were doing was they're taking away the leadership and
Mm-hmm.
bringing control of those departments in house,
Right.
and trying
Yeah.
to centralize. So
Uh,
I suppose really this is, although I feel sorry for those people who have lost their positions in the administration. At least those research areas are being continued, albeit maybe under a different leadership.
Yeah, so the story that you mentioned is, I think, for the review of grant proposals, a peer review, which is brought under the central agency. I forget the name of the agency.
But yeah, I wasn't sure whether that also meant that
Yeah,
those departments. I can't believe those departments are going to be closed as well. They might just change the way those decisions are made.
right. And finally, the last main news story that we have is related to COVID research and another sort of cutting of grants. So this is the Nature News exclusive. NIH to cut grants for COVID research. Documents reveal this. So the climate change and South Africa related research are also facing cuts. This is part of the story. Apart from obviously COVID related research, these grants are worth billions of dollars, and these are being terminated. And to be fair, Tony, I recently had a conversation, I think a few days ago, with somebody who works in the University of Minneapolis. Sorry, University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, and the cuts that they have, all their research projects, it has the DEI angle to it, and everything was cut, and people are struggling to figure out what to do with whatever they were planning. So it's disastrous. So the claim by the US government is that the pandemic's over and the funds are unnecessary. Well, do you agree with that? I mean, life science research. I mean, I think the best the thought leaders in the space of public health say that pandemics could be recurring every decade or something. So you should never pull the plug on anything that brought the entirety of planet Earth to a halt five
Yeah,
years ago. Yeah. So what are your
yeah.
thoughts on this?
I don't think I can say anything over what you just said more than you just said, KK. We've used the word baffled. I'm not sure that's strong enough for
Yeah.
me. We had this is a disease that killed millions of people
Right.
worldwide, and as you say, made the world stop
Right.
for nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
Uh, no, I really I can't understand how there's any skepticism about this.
Right.
We all know people who are affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Surely no government wants this to reoccur. So surely the investment should be going in the other direction. But anyway,
Okay, before I ask you a couple of questions, Tony, I will take the last story. This is a quick hit. It is from KFF Health News,
yeah.
related to the COVID news
Well,
stories.
it's all related, isn't it?
Yeah, scientists, say NIH officials told them to scrub mRNA references on grants. So it's self-explanatory. The scientists express concern over the potential political influence on scientific research and funding. Obviously, mRNA research is intricately related to COVID-19 research, and in terms of making vaccines. Apart from COVID-19, obviously for flu and AIDS, and I guess everybody is aware that Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s anti-vaccine stance is an important contextual aspect to this. And I think he recently made a claim that he still believes in, I think, flu vaccines or something like that. I forget, whatever it is. But another U.S. administration related negative story in the field of life sciences and pharmaceuticals. Any thoughts before I ask you a couple of broad questions about the stories that we cover?
It's not often that I'm speechless about some of these news stories, but this related the kind of almost the COVID denial. It just I don't see how anyone in the world benefits from some of these
Right.
actions.
Right, right. So, Tony, I'm going to the uh, moving away from the screen share. So, I'm going to ask you. So, we covered a lot of stories related to funding cuts that affects researchers, publishers, and research in general. And you
Yeah.
briefly mentioned the consultancy services uh, that might be needed for these publishers. So, could you explain further in terms of what organizations like us, as well as Charlesworth, do in the space of consultancy for publishers in terms of strategy and marketing?
Yeah. Well, I'll try and keep this brief. So,
Mm-hmm.
certainly for someone like China, our sister company Charlesworth has a service called China Expert
Mm-hmm.
Services, and there we have either staff or we have access to specialists who can advise not just publishers, really any organisation, but our expertise is in publishers and educational experts, how to enter the market, how to create dialogues with key decision makers within the China market, and we can offer something similar
Mm-hmm.
uh, in India as well through our central office at Crimson.
And
So it's really just providing expertise, providing gaps in company knowledge and expertise. Answering questions. I think it can range from something as simple as maybe um, market planning, market preparation, to doing some market research, actually right through to implementation.
mhm. And if publishers or representatives of publishers are watching this, how could they get in touch with us to find out more about this?
Well, I mean, it's very straightforward. You just need to go to the Charlesworth website and click on the China Expert Services tab, and
Hmm.
that'll lead you directly to my colleagues, Andrew and Mike, Andrew Smith, Mike Evans, who can help guide you and advise you in these areas.
Right. And before we leave you, I would also like to remind, maybe Tony, you can also add to it. We've talked about a lot of DEI related negative stories, but we have a positive story related to DEI. That the Trinka suite has DEI related checks, and this can be used to improve DEI. And the world is still not the US, and we still care about DEI. And it's if you want your documents to be checked for DEI, inclusivity, etc., please consider exploring Trinka, the ecosystem, the writing assistant and the reading assistant, as well as several reports. Tony, anything do you want to add to
No,
this?
you're absolutely right. The
Yeah.
world continues. Policies are still in place. Um, if you're a journal publisher and you want to make sure that you know that your content is DEI compliant,
Mhm.
as you rightly say, that we have tools that can help identify whether content is included or excluded
Yeah.
um, from those categories.
Excellent. So, Tony, I believe PubShorts is the DEI friendly place. And if suppose people want to listen to or watch the previous episodes of PubShorts, how can they do it? And where can
Well,
they find us? Yeah.
you can watch all previous 56 episodes on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Just search for Inago Pub Shorts, and you'll be able to access and see all 56 episodes, which started back in September last year. So well done us, 57 episodes and more to come.
Right, right.
Uh, yeah,
And
and
yeah.
press like, share the videos with your colleagues, and please send us your ideas for suggestions for articles that you've seen that you feel may be of interest to your colleagues.
Yes, and before I leave you, how was the conference experience last week? And
Oh
could you
yes,
explain?
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I was at the American Association of College and Research Libraries conference, ACRL, in
Mm.
Minneapolis, which takes place every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were there specifically to talk about our AI products and services. Um, it was interesting to see how wide the level of knowledge was, and the level of willingness and
Mm.
acceptance of AI is across the US research libraries. You know, you've got some institutions that are very pro, they're advocating it, they're putting committees together to investigate, responsible use of AI. You've got others that are saying that my school will
Mm-hmm.
never ever encourage use of AI. So I was talking to one librarian, for example, from a leading university, who said, "Look, here's my dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
We want our students to be as equipped and as armed and as well prepared as possible when they're going into the workplace. So I've got one department, which I think was a philosophy department, it was a humanities department, they're saying you are not allowed to use any AI
Wow.
in your content at all. And then in the building next door, which was the business school, they were effectively forcing their students to use AI to
Right.
generate, because they said, look, unless you use it here, you're not going to be ready when you're going to get your
Yeah.
first job, because those employers will expect you to have these skills and knowledge when you start.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a real dichotomy, I think,
Right.
of expectations. But it's encouraging to see, um, you know, people talking about AI in I think the right, responsible way. And that you can't see AI as a single
Mm-hmm.
thing. You have to see AI as a set of tools that will help address and resolve
Mm-hmm.
problems and challenges.
Right.
And those problems and challenges are different and will be addressed in different ways.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that summary, Tony. So I guess we are at the end of the episode, episode 57, Clampdown of PubShorts. And until the next episode, this is Dr. KK signing off on behalf of Tony, as well as the rest of the team that helps us bring such content to you. We'll see you in the next one. Bye, Tony.
See you in the next one.